it's important that the rep looks at the trace before, looks at the trace after, before it's wrapped to make sure everything's there. That being said, after that, you make sure everything's tagged, is labeled correctly, and we know things get mislabeled all the time. But again, you have to do your due diligence and do the best job you can to make sure everything goes smoothly. Then goes in the autoclave, big cooker. After that, we let it cool off. Of course, you put it on some type of rack or something, roll it into the room, and that's pretty much it, you know.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now, it's time to roll back and start the first case.
On this week's episode of First Case, we are speaking with Bruce Finney, a regional sales manager for a medical device company in Birmingham, Alabama. And today we are going to be talking all about reps, their role, and really finding out what the people in the red hat are really doing and all the stuff they're doing besides what we see when we're in the operating room with them. So hang on to your hats. We will be right back with Bruce Finney.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to First Case.
Joining us now is Bruce Finney, a regional sales manager for a medical device company and a longtime friend of mine from Birmingham, Alabama. So, Bruce, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's good seeing you, Melanie.
Yeah, I am excited to have you on the show. And as we were putting together season 18, thinking about collaboration and all of the different departments and people and services and things that come together to make surgery happen, as an orthopedic person, I mean, I could not talk about reps, right? I mean, we have vendor reps who we interact with on the daily. So obviously, I think this is a very important conversation to include in this season. But before we launch into the topic of the role of vendors and how they support the operating room, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone and let them get to know you?
Well, I'm Bruce Finney. I've been in the world of medical sales for about 11, going on 12 years now. Primarily, my experience is in orthopedics, but my entire territory has been most of the state of Alabama. Currently, in my new role that I took probably about 3 months ago, as regional sales manager, my territory is Alabama and the Florida Panhandle, so I get to travel around a good amount. I get to work in a bunch of different specialties, but I love what I do. Been doing it for a while. I'm good at building relationships. I would like to think that I'm a pretty good technician in the OR, and I'm very helpful, but, you know, I'll let Melanie tell you that if I am.
Very fond memories of working with you, so that says a lot. And you are good at building relationships. And I think that's actually fundamental to this conversation and how building relationships with people can help us with our work relationships as we are trying to all come together to make surgery happen for our patients. But when we talk about being a medical device rep or a sales rep or a vendor rep or whatever someone may know this role as, if you are a vendor or a rep in a hospital, what does that role typically look like? What does it involve?
So, of course, there are so many different specialties and things that you do. Personally, I'll speak on orthopedics. Mm-hmm. What that typically involves is we bring in the instruments that the surgeon will use for surgery, of course, and we bring in the actual implants. And we are called to be a consultant in the operating room. So we bring everything in, we make sure it's sterile and processed for the surgery. We bring it into the operating room. The staff, the circulator, the surgical tech, they open everything up, make sure it's clean. We make sure everything's there. We make sure everything is set up in a flow that's going to facilitate a smooth surgery. Implants. We make sure we have all of our million implants ready for the actual surgery. And then we're there just as a consultant for the circulator, for the surgical tech. We're typically kind of telling them what to do and what order to go in and processes with our equipment. Usually we have a laser pointer, and the surgeon, we're there as a resource. They'll turn around and say, hey, how many millimeters of bone do I cut off of this using your specific equipment? And you better know the answer.
Actually, that brings up a really good question. So what does the training look like for you so that you can be that resource for the scrub, for the circulator, even for the surgeon, to sit there and tell them, here's what you need to do to put this implant in? What does your training look like?
So the term that they use, the phrase they use is drinking water out of a fire hose. They pump you with so much information because, again, this is a pretty high-stress, serious thing that you're going into. So we go to training. My training was done in Memphis with the company that I worked for. It's a pretty big orthopedic company. And we literally went in. I remember going in, and you have to go and do all this role playing. We are operating on sawbones, which are just, I guess, is made of, I don't know the word. It's like a dust type deal, but it's literally bones. And you go in and you actually perform the surgery on them. We actually went in and did surgery on cadavers as well. So they make us go through and do the entire surgery.
Well, that helps you know it, yeah.
100%. You have tests, you have modules, you have rankings. And if it's one of those things, if you aren't passing the tests, you could potentially be fired going through training. So it's a pretty high stress training that we go through. A lot of people say to be a rep, oh, it's easy and this and that. And I tell them, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
There are many people who tried to go through it and got sent home the first week because they couldn't figure stuff out.
Feels like boot camp. I'm just like,
it kind of is. It really is. Yeah.
Man.
It really is.
So did it ever make you nervous to have a surgeon mid-operation have this patient open, they're doing their surgery, and then they look at you as the expert to say, what do I do now? Did that ever freak you out?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in my first several years, because again, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
There are so many different procedures, and there's no way that I could just go learn them all and be an expert on everything. So it's okay to tell the surgeon, I'm not sure, doctor, but if you give me 1 second, I'll find out. So you always have lifelines that you reach out to, and you'll see me. I'll be in the back of the room making a call in the middle of surgery.
Yeah.
To ask, one of our engineers on the inside, hey, I need an answer to this, and I need it right now. Or you're texting another senior rep somewhere, and someone has the answer. And if you look on my phone, I have at least 100 files that have charts, that have different things on them. So if a surgeon says, hey, let's say you're doing a total hip case, and the poly that you use that articulates on the femoral head, he says, well, how thick is this poly? I'm not going to remember every little millimeter of every size of every little implant, So I just, hey, give me 1 second, doc. Open that file, look it up. Hey, this is the answer. You give me 60 seconds, I can get it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us are willing to give that grace to just somebody to look up information because we recognize that you can't know everything. Now, I have been in cases before where we were doing maybe a different kind of procedure. The surgeon was doing something that they weren't really familiar with, and the vendor was in the back of the room and they had their iPad there the whole time and they're having to look up every single thing, and it was taking a really long time. The surgeon's getting frustrated. And at that point, you're like, give me somebody who knows what they're doing, please.
Yeah.
So I have seen that happen too, but I guess there's a lot that goes into it.
It happens. I've gone into procedures with surgeons that
Yeah.
And it might be a procedure that we only do, or I only see 3 or 4 times a year. Well, if I only see it 3 or 4 times a year, I'm probably not an expert on it. Yeah. So I'll sit there and we have technique guides, and that's typically a surgeon for a rep going through the technique guide and telling them what to do as they're reading it.
Wow.
It's like that sometimes.
It happens. It happens. Yeah.
It happens.
Well, but still, that's a lot of pressure, and I can see that being very stressful to be that expert resource for every case. to be an expert or a resource for all of the products that your company offers, when maybe you don't see them all the time. I can see that.
Right.
It would stress me out. That's for sure. I'd be stressed.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. I mean, you'd be shocked how many implants and instruments and procedures that companies make implants and instruments for. It's no way you can know every single thing and remember all that and be an expert at it.
Thank God for technology, because it provides us the information that we need. Although it can also cause problems too, as we're going to talk about later in this episode. But at least we have those resources, those files, like you said, or the other things that we can fall back on to get that information. But when it comes to information, though, obviously you are at the mercy of somebody at the hospital telling you when cases are scheduled or notifying you about what's going on with the next day, maybe the next week. How did you, as a rep, get the information that you needed so that you could be prepared for cases? What worked, honestly, I guess, and maybe what didn't?
Some hospitals it works. So the hospital that you and I know each other from, they do a pretty good job. They send out an email the day before, so you always kind of stay abreast on when you have cases. And for the most part, as a rep, it's your responsibility to also go by your surgeon's clinic or know the scheduler, and they're going to let you know everything. Personally, I'm an in-person type person. Every week, I make time to go by my surgeon's clinics so I can look at the schedule book. I know exactly what I have. I know what time. I know what case order. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some hospitals that send out nothing. It's kind of one of those things. They expect you to be a mind reader and just know when the procedures are and figure it out yourself. So inevitably, there are going to be those times where cases cancel, cases add on. They don't let you know when the case is swapped. So I've been across town doing something else, and I'll get a call, and this is the worst thing. When you get a call and they say, "Hey, Bruce, we know you had the fourth case today, but we just bumped it up to second. Where are you? Where are you and where are your trays?" Correct. We're flipping the room right now. Where are your trays? And I'm like, I'm 40 minutes away. Like, nobody wanted to tell me. And they're like, well, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
sorry. There's nothing you can do. So I it's good to have relationships in the hospital, because I'll call another rep. I'll call the circulator, the team leads, and I'll say, hey, can you go pull these trays for me? Get them in the room. I'm on the way.
Yeah.
So, but that's just building trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And those relationships, once again, are really important, because as a team leader, I had plenty of reps that I would gladly go pull trays for, because they communicated with me. They were always there. They were always prepared, always on time. And if something happened like that, I can't say that I was perfect about remembering to call reps when cases canceled either. So I've had my fair share of mistakes, but okay, fine. Just tell me the trays, because that's really what I need. You just get here, tell me the trays. I will go get them. We will open them, and we'll be good to go. Let's just keep rolling. I also have had a few reps where it was always, hey, pull my trays. Hey, pull my trays. Hey, pull my trays. And I'm like, if I have to pull another one of your trays and you are not here, we are going to throw down. So it really does depend on that relationship. But also, like you said, that trust and that, like, I guess, proven track record of being able to work together and being where you're supposed to be and showing up on time and all of those things that we just kind of rely on our reps. Well, anybody really, when it comes to just having a good work ethic and showing up to work, right? Yeah.
And I know plenty of reps that I would never hire and I would never work with. And I'm buddies with them, but I would never work with them because I know that's their reputation.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is funny. Okay, so it's ultimately, it is really the responsibility of the rep to find out the case schedule, however you work that out within your schedule, within your system. And like you said, where we worked, we also did that second or third round of information just because we wanted to make sure that everybody knew, that everybody was informed, and that we didn't have a delay the next day. And that's us just taking it a step farther to ensure that everybody was communicated with. But there were multiple times that I sent out an email and I was the first person telling somebody that there was a case the next day because they had not heard from the surgeon. They had not heard from the scheduler. The only person they heard from was me. And so thankfully we had those emails.
Yep, it happens all the time. And I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but we do appreciate when the hospital and the team leads go that extra step to make sure we're informed. Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about this, because this is another sticky widget when it comes to being a rep. You're in the hospital. You're working within the hospital, helping the team, supplying resources and implants and instruments and all that stuff, but you're not a hospital employee. How did you navigate that weird relationship of in the hospital, but not part of the hospital. I don't really know what to call it, but what's that like? Yeah. Okay.
You're a guest. I tell everyone in medical sales, remember, no matter how often you're there, no matter how much trust you feel like you've built and how much social currency you feel like you've built up with these people, you're a guest in the hospital. I've seen reps get kicked out of hospitals for doing literally almost nothing, just doing their job. But if there's a circulator or a team lead or anyone that says you did something or they don't like you, they don't need a reason to tell you, hey, look, we're suspending you for 60 days. Or tell you what, we're gonna ban you from. I know reps that are banned from coming in certain hospitals. I've seen it. I've seen reps get kicked out for 60 days, 30 days. I mean, as a rep, I'd like to say it's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. Some people, sometimes it's warranted. You know, you have those bad seeds as reps, but you know, it's you're constantly on your tiptoes because I feel like and let me know if I'm getting ahead.
No, you're fine. Keep going.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of one of those things we're looked at as the redhead stepchild. You know,
I'm so glad you said that because I totally agree.
Yeah, and we literally wear the red hats.
You do. Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's kind of one of those things we try to, and I can't speak for everyone, of course, but we try to be helpful. We want to come in and be a part of the team. Every case that I've been in, if a surgeon drops a double angle or a Holman or something like that, well, guess who's running to get it? The circulator typically, so don't get me wrong, a lot of them will run, but a lot of them will just call sterile processing and just say, hey, we need this. Can you bring it here? Well, guess what? I can run a whole lot faster. I say, give me a second, I'll be back. I run out the door. I run to go and get it, bring it back, so everything continues to flow smoothly. So it's disheartening sometimes to feel like you're there doing things that are well out of our scope. Yeah. Because I don't have to do that.
Right.
I can stand there the whole time and just stand in the back of the room and wait to open boxes. But I try not to do that. Anything that anyone needs, I want to be the resource for because I want to be seen as a value add, a resource in the operating room.
And I can tell you that we depend on the reps to be part of our team when we are working together like that. I can't tell you how many cases I've circulated where I've worked with you or with some few other people who come to mind who would do that. And it was phenomenal for me as a circulator to be able to continue to manage whatever chaos was going on in the room. And okay, you know what? They're going to go get it. Or even better, I'd say even better, but more helpful for me was the times when maybe an instrument got dropped or something happened, or they started asking not for something that belonged to you specifically, but just they needed a particular screwdriver or they needed a particular something to get an explant out. And I'm like, I don't know what tray to get. And I look at the rep and I'm like, do you have a tray for this? And sometimes they would say yes. And sometimes they'd be like, no, but you know, so-and-so does, or, you know, you have this tray here. I can go get this tray that's already yours. I'm like, oh, please. Thank you. Cause I didn't know. And so amazing resources. I've even called vendors who weren't even in the room in the case before and been like, okay, they're asking for this and I don't know what it is, but can you tell me what tray we've got? Because I need help. And that to me is above and beyond on the side of the vendor, but fundamental for just helping our cases to succeed and building just the good relationships between the staff and the vendors. Anyway, to me, it was phenomenal. So obviously you're the expert on your trays and sometimes you'll end up being the experts on our trays and you help us. Like I was just going through my own issues when I've just needed help and had somebody to come help me. But when it comes to bringing in your trays or providing your trays for a case, what does that process typically look like to make sure that you have all of the trays that we need for cases?
So it starts with finding out what case it is, finding out exactly what the surgeon wants to do. And you have to, of course, I tell people, always overplan. If you're doing a total knee replacement, just a primary total knee replacement, have revision stuff there as well, because you never know when you get in this case, the anatomy might be a little funky. The surgeon might mess up and say, oh, wow, I need to stem this tibia or stem the femur or something. So you need to have everything there. That being said, you bring it in. You take it to the dirty side or decontamination. Mm-hmm. You turn the trays in. Typically, you have to tag them. You have to make sure everything's in there. You give them to the, the sterile processing workers. Yeah, the sterile processing tag. You give them to them. They run it through a wash. First, they hand wash it. Then they put it in these massive washers. Then it comes out. And when it comes out the other side, typically the reps have to go and look at it again, make sure nothing was lost in the washer or anything like that, because stuff flies out. Somebody drops a tray, because I hate to say this, a lot of times they don't care about your trays as much as you care about them or the actual surgery. So, and if anything happens, it falls on the rep, not them. I can tell them all day, when I turned this tray in, it had everything in it, and now it doesn't. So it's important that the rep looks at the trays before, looks at the trays after, before it's wrapped, to make sure everything's there. That being said, after that, you make sure everything's tagged, is labeled correctly, and we know things get mislabeled all the time. But again, you have to do your due diligence and do the best job you can to make sure everything goes smoothly. Then goes in the autoclave, big cooker. After that, we let it cool off. Of course, you put it on some type of rack or something, roll it into the room, and that's pretty much it, you know.
What about getting them?
The quick version of it.
Yeah, that's the down and dirty version for sure.
Yeah.
But what about your timelines for getting those trays to the facility? I'm assuming if you're properly communicated with, then you can get those trays to the facility maybe a couple of days in advance, right?
Yes.
If you're not, or if you're surprised or suddenly have a case added on unexpectedly and you know, it's at hospital A, but your trays are over at hospital B. How do you navigate that to get the trays where they need to be so that they can be turned over in time for that case?
Well, you drive, or you have your associate drive, or whatever you're going to do. You drive to that hospital, you go in, you tell them the situation, you grab the trays. At this point, when you take them out of the hospital, they are considered unsterile. Even if they are sterile at this hospital and wrapped, when you grab them and you take them somewhere else, they are unsterile. So, you grab them, throw them in your back seat, trunk, whatever. You haul butt to the other account. You get there, and then you go through that entire process, and you let them know this case is for an add-on case today. I need this ASAP. And then you're going to have them look at you and give you the death stares, because they're looking like, well, why don't you have your stuff?
Why didn't you already have your stuff here?
And you're going to tell them, I'm sorry, I just found out about this case. And then they're going to look at you and say, well, you need to do a better job. And you say, you're right, I'm sorry. My apologies. Because again, as a rep, as the redhead stepchild, you're expected to just take it and just say, because everything's wrong. Okay, you're right. I suck. I need to be better. I'll bring you pizza next week or something. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But that is true. You really do take the heat sometimes for things that are completely beyond your control, out of your control. And I think that this speaks to the importance of communication, obviously, for you to know the cases, know the schedule, know what's added on, for the reps being also, responsible for paying attention to the schedule too. But on our end, communicating those changes or those add-ons or the unexpected. And then also, to that is now, okay, this case has been added on. The trays are over across town in another hospital. Surgeon, you can't do this case in 30 minutes. You're not going to be able to do this case for 3 hours or however long we say it's going to be. And that's an important part of the communication aspect of the case and supporting the case. That's not on the rep. It's not the rep's responsibility to pass that information on, although nobody wants to be the messenger when it comes to, hey, you can't go for 3 hours.
Yeah.
However, I think sometimes that part of it also gets left out. Okay, we added it on. The trays are coming. They're going to be here. And a surgeon comes wandering in like, why aren't we in the room yet? I'm like, oh, well, the trays still have to be rerun. Like, we can't go yet. And well, then, the ball's rolling downhill with everybody being angry. So,
yeah. And honestly, everything falls down to the rep. Yeah.
Oh, they weren't prepared. How dare they?
The rep doesn't have 5 sets of instruments just waiting here on the shelf for you, Doc. It's their fault.
I will never mind that, our department told you maybe 3 months ago to get your extra stock out of our hospital because you're not supposed to take up real estate at our hospital because you're not one of our employees, right?
Happens all the time. And you tell them and you plead with them and say, this specific surgeon likes to add on. And I've had a surgeon who liked to do this. He added on cases all the time. And they weren't little small cases. They were large scale cases. So it's one of those things where I had to plead and say, look, I have 2 sets of these instruments here. One main, one backup. If he does 2 cases in a day, if he adds on a third, I don't know, I'm kind of screwed. So I'm constantly trying to turn trays over, get them processed, make sure everything's ready so we don't have any delays. Because again, the surgeon may or may not look at the rep and say, well, why aren't you prepared? And I'm looking at sterile processing saying, well, what do y'all want me to do? And everyone's staring at Bruce and saying, man, you suck.
They are as much as you think they are.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. But once again, an additional layer of communication. I've got 2 trays. I've got 2 sets of trays. We have 3 cases. This first case is finished. This first set of trays is going to have to go get rerun because we're going to need it for case number 3. And that is something that I did as a team leader time and time and time again, just with even our standard, just basic instrument trays to make sure that we had prepared. But it's communication and making sure that everybody is working together to keep cases running smoothly. So on that note, as we sit here and reminisce or just laugh at the stress of the role, what do you wish as a rep that the OR truly understood about your role?
We want to be part of the team. We are only there to help. Now, don't get me wrong. We're getting paid for it. We're making money. Our job is to sell. Our job is to do that. But I was always told that as a rep, the surgeon has a vested interest because obviously this is their patient on the table. The rep has a vested interest because if their stuff doesn't work, the surgeon might not use your products anymore, and that's your livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
And don't take this the wrong way. Most of the people at the hospital, they're working on a shift. I work 8 hours. I work 12 hours. Regardless of what's going on, when my time is up, I'm leaving. If this case, it doesn't matter how long this case is, the surgeon's going to be there and the rep's going to be there.
You're right.
The entire time. So it's kind of one of those things where, you know, I was always told if the surgeon's working, the rep is working. So we want you to know we are there to be a resource. We don't think we're part of the hospital. We know we're guests. But, you know, just try not to make us feel like the redheaded stepchild. Like, don't tell me, hey, if I say I have to use the bathroom, don't say, oh, well, this is staff bathroom only. You need to go to the public one out in the hall. I've been to a hospital and they told me that before. And I'd be like, okay, so wait, it's the restroom right here in the OR. I can't use that. And they said, nope, you got to go to the public when reps can't use this. I mean, it's, you know, it makes you feel bad because it really makes you go in and just say, you know, this is, yeah, you're, again, redhead stepchild. That's what you're feeling like. Yeah.
You're expected to be prepared. You're expected to be knowledgeable. You're expected to support all of the cases that you
Correct.
have scheduled for the day. But even though you're in the OR and with the team, you're not treated like part of the team?
Check this. You're also expected to, peri-op week, sterile processing week, surgical tech week. Who do you think they're calling to say, can you provide lunch this week?
Yeah,
Can you provide breakfast?
We don't let you use our bathroom, but will you please feed us?
Correct. All the time. And it's one of those things, you know, it's mind-boggling, really. Because again, not every rep has an expense account.
Right.
I've worked largely as a 1099 rep, meaning I was an independent contractor, meaning when I paid for stuff, when I brought lunches and I did stuff like that, it came out of my pocket.
Wow.
There was no expensing it. There was no major company paying for it. It was me.
I don't think people realize that because I know it's not just you. No, they think it's the company that's paying for it. Yeah. Wow.
Not all. Sometimes, so don't be wrong. Some
Yeah.
Of course.
Wow.
There are a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people are 1099s and it's coming out of their pocket.
I don't know. I don't think I have enough extra in my pockets. We might do coffee and donuts maybe, and that might have been about all that I could.
And I've done that. Bagels are my go-to.
Oh, yeah. Well, a good bagel, man. That's a great way to start your day.
Exactly.
But let's not keep talking about food. I could digress and talk about, food all day. But okay. So I feel like hearing and talking about the role of the rep, obviously I see reps from a certain standpoint because as a circulator, as an orthopedic team leader, as someone who has interacted with reps on a regular basis, I see the value in having them for our cases and really understand how necessary that role is. And I don't think everybody really does. Or it could also be that we have interacted with enough bad apples in the past that we're jaded and just, you know what? I'm not going to trust you. I'm not doing this because as soon as I turn my back, you're going to open something on my back table. You're going to charge me for something that we didn't use, or you're going to, and I've had all of that happen to me as well. So I know it happens, but there is room, I think, for improvement when it comes to the OR rep, just general relationship. Who cares if you use the bathroom, for crying out loud? Yeah. But understanding all of the stress and everything that goes into your role, recognizing everything that's going on the OR side. I think all of that recognition comes together to help us be able to work together better. But I would love to give you the mic one last time, just for any final thoughts, anything else that you want to share with our audience about your role or about just being a vendor in general before we finish our conversation today.
Yeah, I think there are some definite misconceptions about what it is to be a role. And I've had people from sterile processing techs tell me and say, I could do your job. Your job is easy, because they only see me after a case when I'm putting together trays and getting them reprocessed. And they think that's all I do. Then you have the circulators and the people in the OR who say, I could do your job. All you do is show up with your trays and open a box when the surgeon says size 5 femur. All you do is open a box. And I'd like people to, and then you have people who say, y'all are just overpaid box openers. Y'all make a lot of money. You're paid this. One, I'd like people to know, all reps don't make a ton of money. They don't. Yeah. You have the reps at the top who are making, who can kill it. You can make a lot of money as a rep. Not all of them do. There are a lot of reps that you're seeing around day in and day out who are associate reps, and they're making $70,000, $65,000, $55,000, and they're busting their butt just as much as any other rep in there. Also, it's kind of one of those things, people don't see the full scope of what we do. It's not just opening a box. It's not just putting together trays. That's part of it, but honestly, that's the easy part. Going and selling to a surgeon and saying, this is why my product is better. This is why my product will yield better outcomes for your patients. And just trying to support everyone, whether it's the circulators, whether it's the surgical tech, and teach people about it. We're doing in-services to say, this is the product we're going to be using. This is how it's used. So our role is a huge role that encompasses a lot of different, hats. We wear a lot of different hats.
And they're not all red, right?
And they're not all red. And that's another thing. Why do we have to wear different color hats? I hate walking around the hospital in a red hat, Makes me feel like a clown. And then I wear green scrubs, and everyone always
looks like a Christmas tree.
Bruce, you look like a Christmas tree. I get all that.
I get it. One place where I worked when I was in Texas, they decided to require, because we had a problem with our vendors not changing their scrubs between going from hospital to hospital. Right. And so they had a certain color scrub for vendors in the hospital. And the vendors had to be in our scrubs. Now, ultimately, what happened was our scrubs just ended up leaving with them, and they wore them other places. But they made them in terribly, terribly gaudy, and they were brown. And then they had vendor stamped down the leg, and this huge, down with the left side of the left leg said vendor, and then across the back in big block letters it said vendor. You looked like a prisoner. I mean, you really did.
It sounds like prison wear.
It was terrible. And the idea was, okay, these are so ugly. And it was not my idea, by the way. But these are so ugly, they'll just change into them and wear them here. And that way they will have on clean scrubs when they go into our ORs. I can understand the logic. And what really happened was they just wore them in and out of our hospital anyway, and still would not change their scrubs and wear clean scrubs into the facility. So we were still battling come on, guys. But as far as the red hats, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know the red hat other than just designating that so that people know you're a rep. And I think we all just are so used to it at this point that we just, it's a red hat, It
doesn't bother me. I have custom made red surgical caps that I wear. I don't like wearing the little bouffant.
The red bouffant,
I don't have any hair and it itches my head. Another thing, well, we won't get into credentialing and the money you spend and all that, but that's a whole other topic.
Well, we will have to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you have to pay a lot of money to be able to work in these hospitals because reps have to be credentialed. And this hospital has this credentialing system. This one has this. I have no less than 5 to 6 different credentialing services, and all of them are at least $400. And you're paying for nothing.
Other than just access to the hospital.
Correct.
Well, on to, verify that, you're who you say you are, but that's a lot of money to pay every time at a different facility with different stuff. It seems like
you do it once a year. I spend thousands of dollars per year on different credentialing services because every hospital has one. This hospital uses IntelliCentrics. This hospital uses Simpler. This hospital uses
RepTrax or whatever the others are.
Yeah. I mean, just always something different. Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like, I don't know, maybe a single unified thing might make it a little easier for everybody, but that's also another conversation for another day. So we will have to pick up on another round at another time and continue this conversation. But this has been helpful. It's always helpful to understand a role from a person working that role rather than us just looking from the outside and deciding what you do and don't do, because obviously we're not the ones working it. So thank you so much for joining us today. It has been very enjoyable to get to sit and talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Melanie. This was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you. That was Bruce Finney, a regional sales manager for a medical device company in Birmingham, Alabama. And this was a humorous conversation, to be sure, but a very important conversation to be had because we see vendors, we see reps day in and day out within our facility. And we've worked with great ones. And all of us have stories where we've worked with ones who weren't prepared, who did things they weren't supposed to, who didn't follow the rules. And so we sometimes maybe are wary of interacting with reps because we don't know how that relationship is going to go. However, I think understanding the roles and responsibilities of the rep, all of the things that they are doing to support the cases within our facility helps us to see their role as more than just showing up to open boxes or showing up to bring trays, and understanding why their trays might not be here for one reason or another. And it really could be that they weren't communicated with and the trays really were across town and not just because they're not prepared. So as we think about the bigger picture and everyone coming together within the hospital and our vendors as well to support surgical cases, to support surgical care. These are the conversations that are helpful so that we can understand their role, understand what they're doing. And when we understand their role, I really do think that we can work together better. So that is going to do it for this week's episode. On behalf of Chris, myself, and our whole team, thanks for listening to this week's episode of First Case.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of First Case. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to First Case on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for First Case in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. We look forward to hearing from you.